Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Backbone Podcast, where common sense still makes sense in a world that is sick and only getting sicker. And yes, the saga continues. Get your popcorn because I don't think this thing is going away. The whole Nick Fuentes affair, the war that is raging between Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes. This is like a love triangle, and they're all fighting over this little black girl, which is very, very amusing to me. But this is a small snippet of the interview that Carlson and Owens had. And they spent about 15 minutes on a guy who, in their own words, they didn't find relevant. They felt sorry for. They believe he's gay. They think he's a Fed. They think he's all of these things that make him irrelevant. But yet they spoke about him, and Candace Owens has interviewed him, and they are on the attack. Now, Candace Owens had said after this that she will not engage Nick Fuentes again. Well, like most women, she just can't help herself. And she's been on X all day long, putting up so-called evidence and documents and letters and all this stuff about Nick Fuentes and January 6th and all this garbage. That doesn't prove anything. I mean, I've looked at it. I'm sure you'll find that it's on her X account. But she's behaving just like you would expect her to behave. She's behaving like a petty little girl. And the fact that she comes off so condescending just makes it even tastier as she begins to fall apart. And her world is starting to fall apart. It seems like this lawsuit that the Macrons in France have is real. And she seems to be a little nervous about it. There are some interviews with her where she just seems a little out of sorts. And the Fuentes interview did not go well for her. And the aftermath of the interview didn't go well for her. And the aftermath of the interview didn't go well for Carlson either. You know, when you start an interview, and I'm assuming that you guys have seen the interview already between Owens and Fuentes. Journalism 101, they always tell you, no matter how you feel about the person you're interviewing, you always must keep it journalistically credible and professional, which means that you don't bring up any personal attacks. You don't bring up, you don't mock the person in any way. And you certainly don't bring up stuff that they may have said about you or the media company you represent, unless it has something to do with the interview itself. Well, she comes out, and the first thing she says to this guy is, "You talk a lot of shit, and you talked a lot of shit about me," which is one of those unprofessional things you could do. Now, Fuentes, of course, he smirked it off, and he was like, "Yeah," because he's not afraid of her. She's just some chick. But Carlson also should have known better. He should have known better by not attacking the guy personally. And in this interview here between Carlson and Owens, they don't knock the guy down professionally. They don't go telling you that he said that he's lying, or that he says stuff that's not true, or that he's just some nut job fruitcake out of left field. They don't say any of that. They attack him. They attack him for being young, and who wouldn't want their youth back? They attack him for supposedly being gay. I don't know how Carlson would know that. And they attack him on other things. And I'm going to play the video for you right here. And I'll let you be the judge. Is this how two professionals should be behaving? Especially behaving over a guy who, in the way they describe him, is kind of irrelevant. But when you attack a guy personally, and when you attack a guy professionally, and you attack a guy for 15 minutes on a segment, on your segment, he hit a nerve somewhere. And now they're worried. And now with social media, the attacks are just relentless on Candace Owens. There's this whole thing about Candace Owens not knowing how to read, and it's just it's fun and games. But let's get to the interview over here. This is at the midpoint, so it's about 6 minutes. I didn't want to play the whole thing because I don't know if I'll get copyright strike. But let's start in mid interview here with Tucker and Candace Owens.
Has it occurred to you that, and I just want to say, I haven't watched a lot of Nick Fuentes in my life at all. But what I've seen, the guy's very talented. Like, just as a, well, let me just say this, as someone who's talked to cameras his whole life, it is very hard to sit and just like riff for 20 minutes.
Just to jump in here, I worked in the television industry. Tucker Carlson doesn't just talk to cameras. He has something called a teleprompter. He is a writer that writes down what he says, and he's told what to say. So Tucker's not being, maybe I'm just nitpicking here.
And I think it's an amazing skill, and he has that skill. But I also have noticed that his targets are all people who are sincere, non-crazy, non-hateful opponents of neocon politics.
Right.
So you have to kind of wonder about that. So Nick Fuentes is like, oh, I don't like the neocons. But then his targets are J.D. Vance,
neocon.
Joe Kent. He got involved in Joe Kent's campaign with a super. Oh, yes. You, me. And it's like, what is that?
Dave Smith. I asked him about that because that's a question that I had. So
this guy, Dave Smith, he's basically a failed comedian. How is he in this discussion? I mean, he's only popular because he's a Jew against Israel. That's the only reason why he's popular. He hasn't really said anything that is relevant to anything. I just, it's like the flavor of the month. Candace Owens is a token because she's a Black woman who's conservative, or she says she's conservative. So that's why she's like the token Black chick. Like in any horror movie, you always have like, the blonde cheerleader, the smart girl with the glasses, the dumb jock, the weirdo guy, and then you have the Black person that usually is the first one to die. But she's just a token, and Dave Smith is the token of the week because he's like this guy that is outspoken about Israel, and he just happens to be a Jew. And he'll go away because he's just going to pretty much outlive his usefulness. And his career will probably be over, and he'll work little nightclubs and probably OD somewhere. But yeah, I just don't understand the whole Dave Smith thing. Like, why bring him up? He's just not pertinent here.
Did the right thing by asking him to his face. What's up with this? Like, why do you attack Dave Smith? You say that like your biggest critique is that America's being controlled by Israel. Then you have Dave Smith, who has been such a sound voice. And by the way, opposite experience with Dave Smith. I have my podcast. He's a fantastic human being.
Dave Smith is one of the nicest people.
Another tactic on women when they try to attack you personally is they compare you to other men. So this is typical of a woman. She's attacking Nick, and she's comparing him to other men. And if a woman ever compares you to another man, or especially her ex, that's the time when you lace up your shoes and you run the other way, because she's a horrible narcissistic person. And Candace Owens seems to be a horrible narcissistic person. But we'll continue.
Fantastic human.
Yes.
And so I judge people according to my experiences with them. And so Nick is being judged according to my experience with him.
But like, what is this?
I don't get it.
Where does
I don't
the funding come from? I probably shouldn't even say this, but the only reason I know who he is because someone sent me a video a few years ago of him attacking me. And I was like, so I'm looking at this. And I'm like, well, first of all, this kid's really talented, like legit. And I can assess that just having done the job for so long. So I was like, wow, lots of talent, native talent. And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn actually, was involved in that world. Completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. And I'm like, well, how the hell would this child from Chicago, my dad was 84 when he passed. Like, who's this guy know who my dad is? And like, he's in intelligence. How would he know that? And I
Wait, so that was his critique of you? Because I didn't see it. It was
yeah,
like, he's like,
someone just sent me this video and was like, you can't believe anything Carlson says because his father was in the CIA and he's
fascinating.
a CIA working on behalf of the CIA. Well, I mean, I think it's pretty.
And again, I'm sorry for the sneezing fit. I just, I don't know what my allergies are. I don't know if I have allergies, but I'm just has a sneezing fit all of a sudden. And there you go with another attack by Carlson on Fuentes. And they're not really saying anything professionally about him. He went after my dad because he's in the CIA. I never knew he was in the CIA. Fuentes, of course, on Friday brings up about 5 interviews over the past 10 years where Carlson admits that his dad worked for the CIA or was connected in some way to the CIA. So, I mean, Tucker loses credibility with that. But why refer to him as a child? I mean, he's a grown man. You know, why? What's the point of this? And this is the whole, you know, the whole gang up like in middle school. This is like a clique here of, you know, funded people who are broadcasters, teleprompter readers, and they're going after the kid that's outside of the mainstream realm. And it's just, you know, Carlson's behaving like a woman. It's straight up. There's no reason to belittle the guy. If you don't like what he said about your dad, hey, it's not true. My dad wasn't in the CIA. We know it's true because Carlson talked about it, like we said. But why go after the guy as being a child? It just doesn't make any sense to me. It has nothing to do with how he conducts himself professionally. And you're just upset that he found this out. He outed you. He outed your dad. And he just ruined your credibility. Now he ruined your credibility. So you just inflicted this huge wound on yourself. And I mean, Carlson will never probably get on television again, but just the behavior here is just uncouth. It's just without decorum. Do better, Carlson.
Pretty obvious, and I actually feel emotional in my anger towards CIA. And I think that comes out on the air quite regularly.
Right.
And so the idea that I'm working for the CIA is like deranged.
Well, if it helps, he said I'm funded by Russia now. Since the interview, he then did a thing and said I was funded by Russia.
But you would be
okay.
a lot more likely to take Russian money than I would be to work for the CIA because you would never take Russian money and you're not Russian. But I mean, I really hate the CIA. And I mean,
right.
I mean, that's like very offensive to me. So why would you?
It's like personal for you.
Well, a little bit.
Yeah.
And anyway, like, who is this kid exactly?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's just an accident that the guy exclusively goes after people who are in roughly the same. And then he gets up there and he's like, you know, making Holocaust jokes. And it's like, is it possible that this is like David Duke? And David Duke, every time I had a new show, David Duke would endorse my show.
So now this is typical Saul Alinsky stuff, you know, ruin the guy's credibility, mass attacks, single him out, and of course now compare him to somebody who is a former KKK Grand Dragon, and that was what David Duke was. So we see the setup here. Candace does what most women do. She compares one man with another man who she thinks is better. And the male type is, well, you're just like this guy. So now people will equate David Duke and Nick Fuentes as being the same. This is typical Rules for Radical stuff. If you've ever read that book, it was written by a guy named Saul Alinsky, and it basically tells you how to attack and destroy public enemies, political, entertainment, anyone within media. It's a good book to read, just so if you ever find yourself in that position, you know how to guard yourself from it, and you know how to counter. Because it's not that great of a book to read. It's not very well written, but it is a good book to study as a counter, because this is the effects of it. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're left, right, conservative, liberal. The attacks are always the same, and they're always coordinated, and they're always predictable.
I don't know. Who the hell is David Duke? Well, David Duke is obviously part of a campaign to discredit people on the right, obviously.
Mm.
And I think it's very obvious that Nick Fuentes is exactly the same. Doesn't mean everything he says is false. It doesn't mean he's not talented. He's enormously talented. Doesn't mean he's a bad person. I'm not attacking him personally, but he is clearly part of a campaign to discredit non-crazy right voices. That's obvious to me.
So he's talented. He's not always wrong, but he's crazy. There's a little bit of irony there. You got to make up your mind a little bit, dude. I mean, either he's nuts or he has some points, and you don't have to disagree or agree with him on everything. But don't try to destroy his credibility when you just destroyed yours. Don't try to destroy his credibility by saying that he's crazy and that he's the equivalent of some Klans member. You're doing exactly what the left does. You're doing exactly what those guys in funny hats do. I mean, come on, dude. You were supposed to be you were supposed to be the Nick Fuentes for a lot of people. You were the rebel on Fox. And now he's just it just seems like he's bought and paid for and just basically milquetoast just like everybody else.
I've been around a long time. I know it when I see it.
Yeah. And I will say, I don't understand it. We were very kind to him. Like, I truly, like, we almost said, like, we felt maybe he was a bit lonely. We should invite him back for dinner. I mean, that's how good of an experience I had.
Clearly it's
and then it was a 180. So it's either A, it's being driven from like a little boy insecurity. And he just was so worried that he like just went on the attack because he doesn't know how to have normal relations after being banned everywhere.
Well, I think there's that
could be one element.
The angry gay kid thing going on. Yeah.
All right. So there we go. So she says, oh, we were going to take him out to dinner because he seemed lonely. I watched that whole interview. He didn't seem lonely to me. I don't know what she means by that. But again, that is a feminine attack trait. Oh, you're lonely. You can't be with anybody. You don't have anybody in your life. You can't get a girlfriend. Do you want to maybe hang out with us? We'll be charitable and generous and donate our time to you. And then Tucker, he adapts his feminine side by questioning his sexuality and trying to emasculate Fuentes. This is typical Roosevelt radicals attacks. This is very feminine. This is very, very ladylike. This is a gang up. This is a clique, Mean Girls type conversation here because they're not saying anything relevant to his professionalism or his credibility. Nothing. They have not proved a damn thing about him lying, about him being inaccurate. Candace said, "Oh, he was mean to me after the interview," and Tucker's mad that he called out his daddy. And all of it is true. Every single thing this guy has said, Nick Fuentes, is true. And they just can't handle it. And now they're dealing with the repercussions of it. But let's go.
It's what you're saying where he does this, he's lying to everybody and pretending that things are one way when it's not. I can say
why is he attacking Joe Kent, who, I mean, Joe Kent worked as a CIA contractor, paramilitary contractor. He was in the U.S. military for years fighting our neocon wars. And his wife was killed in Syria in one of those wars. Joe Kent is the single most sincere critic, and I would say the one with the most credibility in the United States to say this foreign policy is bad. It killed my wife. I was a part of it. Joe Kent is actually someone the CIA doesn't like at all because he understands how it operates. And for Nick Fuentes, who's like some child from Chicago, to go after him specifically, one congressional seat in Washington State.
That is random.
It's not random, though. It's the opposite of random. Joe Kent was number one on the list of people they wanted to knock off, people who believe in our neocon foreign policy. They wanted Joe Kent out because he could stand up and say, I actually know. I've got the receipts. My wife was killed in Syria. You had to take that guy out. And Nick Fuentes, this child, this weird little gay kid in his basement in Chicago.
So Carlson here is suggesting that Fuentes is actually the CIA operator or op here, the CIA agent in charge of destroying Joe Kent's campaign. And listen, Joe Kent's a tool. I mean, I don't know if you know anything about him. He's just he follows orders. He's irrelevant too. He's just another guy who's taking up space taking up air. But again, he's just a child. He's gay. He's from Chicago. Chicago is only what, the third, fourth largest state in America, and he's living in his mom's basement. So this is all personal attacks. And by the way, have you don't know anything about Nick Fuentes from what you said, but you're sure bringing up a lot of instances where Fuentes has gone after people. I mean, the credibility hole is just getting deeper and deeper and deeper, and they look so angry doing it. They look so angry doing it. And you just got to wonder, like, what are they hiding? How much money are they getting? And who are they working for? Are they really the ops? Are they really the feds? Because they're not hiding it very well.
Is participating in a super PAC to bump off Joe Kent? Like, I've been around this my whole life. I know what that is. It's just an organized effort.
Yeah.
And he also did the thing that David Duke always did, including to me, which is be like, oh, yeah, it's my friend. And everyone's like, oh, Tucker Carlson's been endorsed by David Duke. I've been making like the anti-racist argument my whole life.
Right.
Like, I'm not for David Duke. Do I think David Duke is right when he's against affirmative action? You bet I do. But I'm not for David Duke. But
why is David Duke even involved in this conversation? What does David Duke? Most of you wouldn't be able, and I don't mean to insult you. Well, I'm not insulting you. It's a good thing. Most of you wouldn't even be able to pick David Duke out in a lineup. I just don't understand why David, and I know why. Because David Duke was a Grand Wizard in the Klan, and he ran for governor of Louisiana, I think, in the early 1990s. But I don't know why it's so relevant with Fuentes. Why are they trying to mix and match these two guys together? I don't know. And it's probably an easy. It might be as easy to say, well, they think they're trying to paint Fuentes as a racist, homosexual Klansman, a homophobic Klansman, anti-Semitic Klansman, and that's what David Duke was. So they're one and the same. But it's just cheap. It's just I mean, you're trying too hard to convince me. I expected more from Carlson here, and he's very disappointing. I didn't expect anything from Candace Owens. I always knew she was just the token black chick, but Carlson, I thought, would come off a lot better than this, and he hasn't. He looked really cheap here.
Duke would try to discredit people by hugging them. And that's exactly what Fuentes did. He goes out there and meet all these people, show up, hi, I'm Nick Fuentes. Can I get my picture with you? That's a campaign to destroy credible voices on the right. And
all right. So there you have it. And I thought they both came off really, really bad. I didn't think that this was good for either one of them. And of course, now that the social media war is going on between Owens and Fuentes, and Owens is getting knocked around from pillar to post. So the question begs, after all this, is who survives? Well, it's who blinks first. And I think Candace will blink first. I think Nick will say something that will offend her that she can't reply back to. And then she'll come out with the whole, oh, he's sexist, he's racist, he hates black women, blah, 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 blah. And that's when she'll lose. That's when she'll lose all her credibility. And she's already losing a lot of her audience over this. Because Owens and Fuentes didn't have the same audience, but they kind of had that, back and forth, people would go to her and then they'd go to listen to him and then listen to her and then listen to him. That audience now, the ones that were shifting back and forth, are now leaning towards Fuentes because he seems more genuine. And he doesn't seem like he's lying or he has to make stuff up. You know, the whole thing about how him being lonely and him being a child and him being gay, living in a basement, he's lonely, he's been deplatformed, so he hasn't talked to people. And I mean, that's all middle school bullshit. That's what women do, and that's why nobody takes women seriously in this realm. They don't last very long. They don't last in news very long, and that's why they'll move over to something more entertainment news-ish, like, you know, The View or something like that. That's when they hit the wall. But their credibility always goes out the window after a while. And Candace Owens, she won't be lasting very long after this. I don't think. She doesn't have much of a platform anymore, especially if something that she's lied about comes out. And if she's lied about anything, trust me, it'll come out. Fuentes so far hasn't lied about anything, not that we know of, and nothing has come out about him that's a lie. That's embarrassing. But again, the day's not over, the week's not over, and this saga isn't over. And we'll be here for it as we move on to other things. And I don't think this is over. I think this will be more of a Twitter X war more than anything else. But we'll see, as we always do. We'll have more content tomorrow, something different. We'll switch it up because I've had enough of looking at Candace Owens' smug look and her talking about her being a mom. What was her husband thinking? The guy comes from like English royalty, and he just destroyed his bloodline. But whatever. All right, there's my 2 cents. Thank you again for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Be careful there, my friends. Satan is always busy, as you know. Be a man. Have a backbone. Because common sense and masculinity are worth standing up for. And if it ends in an ism, it's a mental disorder. We'll see you later.